Welcome to Books and Beyond with That Guy Jay. I am your host, That Guy Jay, and I am joined today by a special guest, my friend from TikTok, Andy.
What's up?
Real quick, you're one of the only guests I can do this with because most of my guests are here for book only, but we could do our
Okay.
watch of the day real quick.
Yeah.
Today, I have on my Citizen Soyosa.
Is that how it's pronounced?
I've heard Soyosa and Tasoya, and I've said both, and I've been corrected on both in comments, so I don't know.
I like
I
Soyosa better.
I went with Toyosa for a while because that's how Teddy Baldessar said it.
Yeah,
but I
okay.
but I don't
Yeah.
know if he's correct either. But this was actually my second gift watch for my 40th last year.
Really?
So I got
Wait,
this and the Hamilton Murph for my 40th last year.
the
This
Murph might be what I get for my 40th.
I absolutely love the Murph, but my favorite color is green, and this dial it's hard to get on this camera, but it's a really beautiful sunburst green dial.
I've seen that watch in person.
Yeah, it's a good
Um,
one.
Green also my favorite dial color for watches.
I
So
love it because there's not a ton of them, but most of the time when they exist, they're done well.
yeah, yeah. And the thing that people really need to understand is how much better that Citizen is than its competitors by Seiko in regards to build quality and bracelet quality.
Yeah, I love this bracelet. I think it's kind of I mean, we can talk about this too, but everything ends up being slight homage within watches. But I
Yeah,
look at this with the display case back. I don't know if the camera will pick it up,
yeah,
but just like I'm sure it's brass, but the gold color really just makes
yeah.
it look so much nicer than I mean, the Seikos for the most part are just they look like a workhorse. They don't look nice.
Exactly. It just looks like it was built to work and there's no decoration, nothing like that, which I'm still okay with. I love Seiko. But yeah, Citizen kind of, in my opinion, has been doing a lot better than them for the past few years.
Yeah, I would agree. I actually don't own any Seikos. I have an homage watch that has a Seiko movement in it, but
Okay.
I don't have any actual Seikos. But what do you have on the wrist
Gotcha.
today?
I am wearing an Islander. So this is the Islander. Um, Shoot, what is the name of this one?
Shoot, is it
Astoria.
yeah,
Astoria.
I
It's
like that
called
one a lot.
Astoria. So I really loved this watch a lot, and this was actually a gift, a Valentine's Day gift from my girlfriend. So the thing that like caught me was is that do you pronounce it Tano or Tano?
Yeah.
I like that case shape because it's not quite square, it's not quite round. It is, and it almost reminds me of stuff that would be worn in like Victorian era.
Yeah.
It just has that vibe to it. And then when they put this little onion um, crown on it, and then they added a few little touches, and just like it has a Cartier feel to it, but not quite. And then the strap, the inner part of the strap is leather, but the outside is a denim.
Oh, is it denim? That's nice. I
Yeah,
like that.
it's really, really nice. It's
I've
gray
been
denim, and I just love it.
I've been thinking of picking up an Islander myself. I think I would get an Islander over a Seiko because a lot of theirs have Seiko movements, but they just have better specs for less money. They have the
They're better
sapphire
watches.
crystal. They have a better build quality.
Yeah.
I also think that Mark has done a lot for the watch community in general by getting so many affordable watches and getting people's eyes on watches over the last probably 10 years. I'm
And
newer.
I started watching his YouTube years before I bought one of his watches. But then again, I was watching his YouTube years before he did his first Islander, which I think he did in 2018 or maybe 2019. He did it right after the Seiko SKX was officially discontinued. And he was like, prices are going up. I know I can make similar homage watches using the same movements, but he regulates them. He puts, like you said, sapphire crystals, and the bracelets are not just a little bit better. The bracelets are like 10 times better than Seiko's bracelets. Islander just knocks it out of the park.
I, last fall, I went to what was it called? It's called Wind Up Watch Fair.
Oh, yeah. Wait, were you at 2024?
Yeah,
I was there in New York.
yeah. I went on what I guess I went on Saturday.
I was there Friday.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I met I saw Urban Gentry and I met Chronometer Check. He was a really cool guy.
he's a great guy.
But
Yeah.
I hung out by the Islander table for a while. They were just so nice. And
Did you talk to Ryan,
I
the
believe that's who I
Asian
talked
guy?
to. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's the one that does their dials.
Yeah, I mean they have so many really unique takes on Seikos, but then I mean they do their own thing as well. They're not all homages. Which is actually that was one of the questions I was going to ask. So this is probably a great segue into that. What do you think of homages? Because I know I'm newer to the watch hobby. I've only been into watches for probably going on 2 years now, and
Okay.
I started with a Addie's Dive Captain Willard homage. I
Okay.
I got it for $60. I was like, I liked the idea of a mechanical watch, but I wasn't
Yeah.
sure I would actually wear it. I had an
Yeah.
Apple Watch years ago and I didn't wear it, so I was like, I don't want to spend a bunch of money. But I got that, and then as I got further into it, like I haven't bought any more Chinese homage watches, but it's hard to argue against their value because again, you get the sapphire crystal, you get a well-made watch, and it's
Yes.
using a legitimate Seiko movement.
Yeah.
Seiko sells them the movement, so they must be okay with it.
So the good thing about Seiko is Seiko makes their movements available for anybody to use, which is
Yeah,
great. And that's just their one of the many ways that they show that they do love their community and they embrace other brands, like even taking some of their design language and using it and stuff like that. They've always been that type of brand. I think that they definitely could increase their marketing. They could
yeah.
do better.
I just, I
But
I think these homages have also shown and Islander that you can build a watch
yeah,
for $300 that comes with better specs.
yeah. And I actually have no problem with homages for multiple reasons. There are ones that I don't. Well, so homages are great. There's a difference. There are like clones and dupes.
Yeah,
Those I do not like. But an homage is that's paying tribute.
yeah.
When I hear that, that's what comes to mind. I go, this is paying tribute. And when you said that you got an homage to the Willard, that got me excited because that's one of my favorite watches that Seiko's ever made. It's iconic.
It is. And I can't, I mean, especially getting into it, I didn't have the budget for a vintage one.
Yeah, they're
And
expensive. I'd love to have one someday.
yeah, my thing is I think a lot of people don't realize that, especially if you go back to the 50s and 60s, every single watch manufacturer was ripping each other off. And in
Yep.
particular, everybody ripped off the Rolex Submariner.
Yeah.
And
Well, especially, but Rolex really didn't have anything significant till that.
yeah,
I mean, they had a bunch of watches that were definitely popular on the market. People knew them, but nothing was like such a big watch for the world, the way that the Submariner was. And also like the GMT Master became an icon very quick as well with Rolex.
right.
But Seiko, they also kind of had that same thing going for them, whereas they have the brand recognition everywhere you go. Everybody knows what Seiko is. It's just they don't see them the same.
Yeah.
When you say Rolex, that's like saying a Bentley to somebody when you're talking about cars. And then when you say Seiko, it's basically like you're saying Honda. It's
Yeah,
okay though.
it is. And it's, before I got into watches, I guess I think I had a different view of what Rolex is and was in particular. I think Rolex, their marketing is probably the best in the world in this case because
Yeah,
they, for most of their existence, the Submariner was a tool watch. I mean, it
yeah,
was meant to be worn. It was meant to get banged around. It was meant to go diving with. And I think
yeah,
it's only probably in the last 20 years that they've really convinced everybody that it's a luxury watch. But when you start
yeah,
comparing it to actual luxury watches, it's really not.
yeah.
And it's like, it's a false
It's a
scarcity with
tool
the
watch.
whole Rolex ADs pretending they don't have watches and
Yeah.
that whole game. It's like they really have done that well. And it's like they're a great watch, don't get me wrong. Um,
But we know how long it takes to make them.
yeah. And they
We've done
also
our research.
they sell 1 million a year. They're not
Yeah.
scarce.
Yeah.
They're one of the best selling watches out there. For the money, I would buy something else personally. I mean,
So would I.
I would buy. I mean, my Grail watch that's like a realistic is I would go for a Speedmaster. I ever since I figured out that I like watches, it's like I just want a Speedmaster. I think they're so cool, and they're cheaper than a
It's an
Rolex.
attainable grail.
Yeah, and they're actually you can walk into a store and buy one, and it would be probably what 4 or 5 thousand less than a Submariner.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you went pre-owned, you could find your absolute grail Speedmaster because there are so many variations. There are limited editions.
Yeah, there's so many
Like
cool ones.
for me, I'm really into any of the broad arrow design Speedmasters because I just like the hands.
Yeah,
You're used to seeing those very plain, like stick baton hands with a Speedmaster, and then all of a sudden they throw in these broad arrow, like big fat ones, but they're classy because they're Omega. So
yeah.
it fits. It doesn't look audacious or crazy. It just looks a little tougher, a little more masculine, I guess. I always saw the broad arrow. I'm like, that's like kind of a tough guy speedy right there. It's a cool watch. And I have to say, Speedmaster, when it comes to like super popular watches that a lot of people love, I think that that's probably one of the better ones. It's the one that appeals to me way more than a Rolex Daytona does. Like visually, I understand people lust after a Daytona, whatever, but I don't want a chronograph where I have to unscrew
I was
my
just gonna say that
pushers.
they're not practical. Other than, I mean, the
No.
only reason to get a Daytona is if you can get the right one, it might
Right.
be worth money someday.
Yeah.
But it's like I wouldn't. Not that I have the money for that right now, anyways. But like I don't want to base my collection around what's gonna be worth money in 10 years because then
I
I'm gonna
never
be
have.
afraid to wear it,
Yeah.
and I like then you're not really buying what you like. But it is from a practicality standpoint, you're supposed to be able to just click real quick and time something, not have to
Yes.
unscrew
It
multiple.
doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, it's a weird
But
one, and it.
if money wasn't an option though, what would your grail be?
Ooh, that's tough. I really. Mm, it'd probably be a Royal Oak,
Modern or vintage?
vintage.
Yeah, dude. The thing is like some people say to me, they go, "Oh, you're just saying vintage because like you just want to be like that guy or you want to fit in with that crowd or what." I would go, "No, no, no, you don't understand. Like I have seen some like gold, and I'm not always into the all gold watch, but when it comes to like vintage gold Royal Oaks, they look amazing. And I've seen a few references that are rare that just look absolutely unbelievable. And I like the no frills, like kind of no nonsense design of the older ones, where the newer ones are more refined and more finished. There are more facets, there are more rounded edges, even though it's still a more boxy, edgy watch and all of that. It's just the older ones look like they're more industrial.
I also, despite I have not a huge wrist, but it's like 7.25, 7.5, something like that. I
Okay.
do like the idea of some of the vintage sizings.
Yeah.
Like a 34 millimeter, a 36 millimeter. I don't know. I'm glad that it seems to be trending away from the large watches, but
Yes,
like
finally.
the 2000s 48, 52 millimeter watches, I can't stand them. I think
The
that
Breitling for Bentleys were popular for a while, and I remember my friend's dad had one when I was like 18, 17, 18. And I remember it was huge. That like the Breitling for Bentley ones were massive. And that thing was like, it looked like it was way more expensive to me at the time. And I remember when he told me, I asked him what it was. What kind of watch is that? He was like, this is a Breitling. And I remember in my head at 18, I was like, Breitling. I was like, damn, that's thousands. And like, I thought my friend's dad was like the coolest dude ever. But like I see him now and he like my friend's dad is like a big watch guy. And I see him now and it's funny. He still wears that watch occasionally and I can tell that like the attachment is still there. And now when I see him with it, I don't really think it's as gaudy or ridiculous anymore because it's like age, and I can tell I know he's had it for that long, and I'm like,
Right.
you know what? He really loves that watch, I think. And he does have a big wrist. He's like probably 8 inch wrist. He's a big guy. So yeah, like even if it's not for me, I don't always knock them, but the big watch craze never, I just never understood it. Like Stallone bought like a 54 millimeter, was it a 54 millimeter Panerai?
Yeah, I think
Something
so.
like that. And then Arnold had to top him and get a bigger one.
Yeah, and the thing with that too is they get so thick that they just look top heavy on your wrist.
Hmm.
And I think that there's something about the and there for I've seen a lot of guys say that the 36 millimeter is like women's sizing, and it's like, well, your grandfather wore 32, 34 millimeter watches,
Yeah,
and no one's calling, that generation feminine. It was just
yeah,
there's to me, I think there's something classy about a slightly smaller one. Most of mine,
yeah,
I think my largest watch, well, it would be the Willard. Um, but those have a really short lug to lug. But like I have a Casio Duro. That's like I think those are 42 or 44.
yeah.
But like much bigger
The
than that, I don't think I'd be that interested. But I really do like. I think 36 is a really sweet spot. Like
That's a
36
great
to
one.
39.
And calling out like what our grandpas wore, it's so true though, because like if you look back at what they issued World War II soldiers back in World War II, they were all 32 and 34 millimeter watches.
Yeah, that era of watches is actually what first got me interested. Is the way I got into watches was actually I do some reselling because I don't have a traditional 9 to 5. I got injured 7 years ago, so I'm like partially disabled.
Okay.
So I came across a lot of watches, and I was like, sure, let me try selling these. And then I tried a couple of them on, and I was like, wait, am I a watch guy? Like maybe I want to watch. So
Yeah,
I saw Chronometer Check show the Casio AE 1200, and I was like, $20, sure, I'll get that. And if I wear it for a couple months, then yeah, maybe I'm a watch guy. And I got it, and then from there, I just went down the rabbit hole.
that's such a good one to start with.
Yeah, it really is.
Man,
It's such a cool
that
watch. For
it's the
$20,
Casio Royale.
you can't beat it. And then from there, once I learned about like mechanical watches, I was like looking at all the World War II, and I thought it was so cool that
Yeah.
whether it was in the UK or in America, is they all basically had the same design, and every manufacturer got on board on basically building the same watch. The only
Yeah,
difference was the name on the dial, but like they were exactly
exactly. I
the
thought that
same.
was great. No,
So it's like field watches in general are more my jam,
they're
and
very cool.
I got into them through the World War II era. It's just and they are smaller, and they're not weatherproof, but they just worked.
I wonder, do you like the brand Praesidis, or is it, I think it's pronounced Presidius, even though the spelling looks like Praesidis.
I don't think I've
You ever
seen
heard of that
those.
brand?
I don't believe so.
So they're an American-based micro brand, and they make watches that are all based on World War II. Whether it is a battle or a soldier, they have done multiples. They even did ones for soldiers from the Battle of the Bulge. And like they did special edition ones where like the dial was cut out of a piece of a fighter jet from World War II.
Oh, that's so
And
sick.
so like every dial was like a one of one dial essentially when they did that run. They did a D-Day watch. But all their watches are very affordable. And the other cool thing about Praesidis or Presidius um, is they give you multiple options for a lot of their watches. And some of their more popular ones, you can choose to get a Japanese movement or a Swiss movement,
Oh, that's really cool.
different price. Yeah,
I like that micro brands do that. They give you options.
yeah. That's like when I saw that as like a clickable thing, I was like, wait a second, I can get a Salida SW200 in this. Then I clicked it, and I think the watch was still under $1,000, and I was like, oh wow. So I bookmarked the website, and I was like, one day I think I'm gonna get one of these. I'd like to get one and do a review. Um, but I have been just trying to put money aside here and there because my 40th is coming up. So I want to get something cool.
That's why I'm glad I got into watches around like a milestone birthday because it really like
Yeah,
opened my eyes to how cool they can be for marking different occasions in your life. Because like I said,
exactly.
for most of my life, no jewelry, nothing, and I tried watches in like high school, like fossils, and they
Oh,
just never
okay.
stuck. I would just get annoyed with anything on my wrist. I think I also wore them too loose, so they would always, kind of like jam up on my wrist. I didn't know any better, so I was just like, I'm not a watch guy. And then
Yeah,
all these years later, what actually really did it for me was I've always been a car guy, and once I got into like learning about how automatic movements work and just the mechanics of it and the different
yeah,
movements really are like, different engines and
yeah.
how
I
much diversity there is within movements and how they operate. I was like, okay, I get it. I understand why people are into these.
That's what made my addiction get worse for sure.
Now have
For me, I got into watches as a kid. I was wearing them when I was a kid. I was obsessed with watches. My dad always had a watch, and I used to literally like sometimes like sneak and steal it off of his dresser and trying to wear it around the house at nighttime.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I always gravitated towards wristwatches because my grandpa, who was a World War II vet, and he was a cop. He was a cop for like 30 years. Always wore a watch, and I mean, it's like he set his watch down on his table next to his chair or his bedside table when he was like done for the day. But if he was getting up to go anywhere, he always put that watch on. And my dad did the same thing. I just watched him get ready for work, everything. It was like right before he left, put the watch on, get it. Then my grandpa would wind his. My dad wore a Seiko quartz watch when I was a kid, and now I actually have that watch,
Yeah, that's
and it
really
doesn't
cool.
it doesn't work because it he my dad broke it rock climbing. He fell, short fall, but he said he smacked a rock with it, and ever since then it just stopped working. So I think there's something up with the movement, but the watch is still decent and intact, and I already had a new crystal put into it. So I had a sapphire put into it. So I'm just gonna have somebody look at the movement. If the movement needs to be replaced, then I'll just do that, I guess. But I want to keep it for sure because now I have the watch that I used to steal off of his dresser.
Yeah, that's so cool. And that's why
Yeah.
I have a daughter, and that's why I was super drawn to the Murph because
Yeah.
in Interstellar, it's dad to daughter, and my
Yeah.
parents my parents actually gave me the Murph for my birthday, and
Dude, that's awesome.
so it's like I know I have this thing that I can pass down to my daughter that she's seen me wear most days, and she knows it came from her grandparents. So it's
Yeah,
like it's
dude,
really
that's
cool to
so
have
cool.
this tangible thing that she can someday have.
Yeah. What's your
And
daughter's name?
her name's Jean.
Jean. I like that. Like Jean Grey.
Yeah, it's after my grandmother, but I've told people it's for Jean Grey before.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that. So what are you reading?
Currently reading I don't even remember the name of it. It's book two in the Wayfarers series. It's a sci-fi
Oh,
series by Becky Chambers.
somebody has recommended that to me. I get a lot of I love Book Talk.
Yeah,
They're the nicest people.
I've loved it too. I didn't do any content creation up until like a year ago, really. And book
They're
talk,
so
like
nice over there.
everybody instantly is so encouraging, so
Yep.
kind.
Yeah, I really, really like and like, geez, the recommendations that I got. I have so many books, but I mean, I am reading a lot. I read two books in between Iron Flame and Fourth Wing, but I'm getting close to halfway done with Iron Flame. I haven't been able to read the past few days, but I will tonight. This is great.
Yeah,
This
I
I
haven't
like.
gotten to Iron
This is
Flame
fun.
yet.
Just the story, like I like the easy reading. It's not as exhausting. Like I know like I've seen some funny videos where people talk about how they sometimes have to like stop the book for a second and go and like Google and find out what a word means in a fantasy book. Like I haven't had to do that.
Yeah.
It's just good. I can just read this. They're using some pretty basic terms. I'm not saying that this is elementary in any way, but like it's just fun.
I think it's a very solid, especially for someone who's never read fantasy.
Yeah.
I do think that it's a very easy transition into fantasy.
My mom loved Fourth Wing and she's never read much fantasy besides, well, she read Watership Down and I think The Hobbit. But besides that, yeah, like so my mom, she blasted through Fourth Wing. Now she's ordered Iron Flame, so she's into this romanticy thing now. as well. I got her into it.
Yeah, and romance and romantasy is something that I never would have even not I wouldn't have been against it, but it just wouldn't have crossed my mind to even try until I got on Book
Same.
Talk. And
Yeah,
I mean I read a ton of romance last year. I did some fun buddy reads, some group reads with people from Book Talk. And like they weren't
yeah,
necessarily books for me, but it was a great time being part of a group that read it. And they weren't terrible. They were definitely they were fun. They're not
yeah,
going to be like the best book you've ever read in your life. They're not going to do anything that you haven't seen in a movie before
yeah.
necessarily, but but they're a lot of fun.
I can't wait to get into the one that gave you that look on your face when you finished it. I bought Tender is the Flesh. I'm looking at it right now.
That book
So
that book is heavy.
well, the thing is, I know what it's about at least, and I'm
Yeah.
like,
I went in
oh,
blind.
because well, I wanted to go in blind, but I bought the book, and then I just kind of like opened and like was like, all right, well, let's just see really quick, and then I was like, oh, wait a second. I was like, they're like processing like I was like this is insane. I was like I got to get into this but after Iron Flame because I read two short but very heavy books when I was in between Iron Flame and Fourth Wing. One of them was Short Stay in Hell. That one I still think about a lot. It's 102 pages, but that book is like a million pages long. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I that is a good description to give someone is like just imagine like something that is going to make your mind just keep going and going and going and going and going for a
You know
bit
it's a
after you're
short
done
one but
with it.
really good that I think you would like? It's called Ring Shout by P. Jelly Clark. It's it's
Send
a
me that.
it's a novella. I guess it's technically horror. It's a little bit, yeah, I guess it would be horror, but it's set in, I can't remember the exact decade, early 1900s, 1930s maybe. And it's basically an alternate universe where Klansmen running around the South are actual demons. And there's a
That
group,
sounds terrifying.
yeah, and there's a group of black women who are combating them and have like kind of their own abilities. It's only like maybe it's a novella. It's like 150 pages maybe, and
Really?
it is there's no filler. It is just straight story, and
I need to read this, and I gotta. I Jolene has to read it too. My girlfriend would love to read something like that.
it's really really good. I've read a couple of his books in a different series, and he's a fantastic author. But that one in particular really stood out to me. I think that's something that you
Okay.
might be into. I'll send it to
Okay.
you. I'll send it to you when we get off.
Yeah. And then if I got a recommendation for you, Gus Moreno's recent book that like is getting a lot of praise, This Thing Between Us. I'm gonna review it soon.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that one.
Boy, uh, like there was a guy that did a review on it, and it made me want to try it because I wanted to try some books that I thought were kind of like were heavy in the sense that they would draw out some pretty serious emotions out of me. Like maybe not some good ones all the time, but like ones that I think are necessary to feel every once in a while, or ones that I've never really felt from a book, right?
Right.
When I say I've never felt grief the way that I've felt it before reading Short Stay to Hell and then This Thing Between Us back to back, like I felt so empty for days, but at the same time, I was like, wow, like really, really good stories. The the Short Stay in Hell is definitely a novella that's like a wild, quick story, whereas This Thing Between Us packs a lot into a short amount of time, but a lot of information into a shorter story. I think it's like 200 pages, but man, it's very depressing.
Yeah. It's funny how much I don't want to be depressed, but I also tend to read books that like absolutely rip me apart.
If you can't handle loss very much, like for me, loss has always been a thing. If I lose someone anyway, that's a big thing for me because I have OCD and my mind obsesses.
Right. Yeah.
And this that like the person that reviewed it was spot on when they said like this will absolutely destroy you inside, but it's so good and so worth reading. And I was like, all right, let's check it out. And sure enough, it destroyed me inside
Yeah, there's so many
completely.
books that do that, and it's like last year there was a big debate on, or maybe it was 2 years ago on Book Talk, where I think it comes back every now and then, where people try and say that certain genres are like anti-intellectual and things like that. And it's like I
Oh,
look at like Pet Cemetery by Stephen King. It's like I saw the movie when I was a kid, and then I read the
hmm,
book as a, now that I have a kid, and it's like
yeah.
I don't think I've read any other books that describe the grief of a parent losing a child better than that, which is just essentially a horror story. And it's like
I,
so many people like poo poo at genre fiction, and it's
yeah,
like they cover real, very real things. They just do it in a different setting.
I haven't read that.
It's kind of long. I mean, most Stephen King books are a little bit long.
Yeah.
He does get a little long winded, um,
Yeah.
but it's actually it's phenomenal. It's really
Okay.
sad at parts,
Yeah.
and it's different than the movie.
Okay.
A lot of his stuff.
I've heard it's one of his best. I mean, my dad is a huge Stephen King reader, and then my mother is a Stephen King hater. It's not that she hates the story, she hates his writing. And she doesn't like to read his books, but she likes when they come to film, basically.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
he does have a tendency to get a little wordy.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people that don't like it, whereas like I really enjoy it, but I have to be in the mood for it and I need the time.
Yeah.
Um, my favorite book by him, a lot of people don't talk about it, or I just haven't found them yet on TikTok, but Needful Things is actually my favorite book by him.
I don't think I've read that one. My
They did a
favorite.
movie and the movie was okay. The movie was okay, but like the book, man, it's a journey.
Yeah, my favorite by him would is 11/22/63. It's
Okay, that's I've seen that on shelves.
it's so different than any of his other books that I've read. It's not at all horror. It's more closely related to sci-fi.
Okay,
And
cool.
it's another long one. It's chunky, but it's like it's one of those things where it ends and it's like, yeah, the ending matters, but also it's like this was all about the journey. Like this was all about all of the characters, even the ones that you only met for a few pages. They all had an impact. They all mattered. And it's a cool story.
I'll check it out. I'm a big fan of, and I have read it, but I read it when I was an alcoholic, so I want to reread it, and it's going to be daunting. But I read Dark Tower. I dated a woman who had like a whole sleeve that was dedicated to the gunslinger, and which I didn't like that book very much, but I stuck it out and I read the rest of Dark Tower, and I was glad that I did. But if I'm being, and I think a lot of people agree that like the gunslinger was like you're like,
Yeah,
like that was it. All right, like
I read The Gunslinger probably 12 or 15 years ago, and then I never continued the series. I own all
it's
of
what
them.
stops people.
I own all of them, and it is on my list to get to someday. But it's like
It's great.
my TBR is never ending. So
Mm. My
one thing that
TBR.
Stephen King gets criticized for, and I think this is a little accurate, is he doesn't always stick the endings. A lot of his books are like they're really good for 90% of it, and then the last 10% you're like, that was kind of a letdown.
Yeah, I don't know if I could ever. That's why I'm like, I don't. I try not to criticize bad endings, but at the same time, I'm like, could you do a good ending?
Yeah.
Like if you were creating a story, I'm like, could you do something that would make people go, wow? And it's like, no, no, you couldn't. Um, I want to read. Yeah, Pet Cemetery's actually been on my list. My dad, it's that's one of his favorites. I also really want to read again, Salem's Lot.
Oh, I love Salem's Lot.
So do I. And that my dad got me that book when I remember I think I finished Lord of the Rings. And it took me a while to read all of them because I was a teenager. And I remember I told him, I
Yeah,
was
they're
like, I
dense.
finished, yeah, I was like, I finished Lord of the Rings. He was like, what did you think? I was like, it was amazing. It was, I think it took me like a year to get it done, but I got it done. And he was like, all right, that's what's up. He was like, you should try some Stephen King. Do you think you're ready for Stephen King? I was like, yeah. I think I was 15. He's like, yeah, you're good. He handed me like three books, and I don't remember what the other ones were because I never read them because they just didn't catch my interest. But the cover of Salem's Lot, the one that he had was this old 80s. um, hardcover with just a set of creepy eyes.
Oh yeah, I've
I
seen that
was like,
one.
dude, I wish I could find that book again. Like that book, that one from like the 80s or whatever, whenever it was
Right.
printed. Maybe it was printed in the 70s, but man, I saw that book and I grabbed, I go, I want to read this one. He was like, that's a long one. I was like, I got this. Man, when I got done with it, I ran downstairs and told him, I was like, I finished it. He was like, what'd you think? I was like, I'm sleeping with you guys tonight.
Yeah.
I didn't really, but like that was a genuinely scary, like frightening read for me.
No, that one it was, and it's a very slow burn too. I mean, there's
It
a lot
is.
of build up for the scare. I watched the new movie that came out last fall, and Salem's Lot. It came out right before Halloween,
I
and
didn't watch it.
it's kind of campy and it's a little bit cheesy at times. And that was my biggest complaint is that they rushed it. Like there was no build up to even knowing that there's vampires. Like you knew right away, and
Yeah,
I was like, that's you're missing the whole point. The build up is what made it so scary.
the first movie, the old movie, that movie scared the shit out of me when I was a kid
Yeah.
because of a few scenes. There was that scene, I think the girl comes to the window floating, like levitating
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah,
in the
yeah.
night. Dude, I had nightmares for fucking night for probably weeks because of that shit. I kept seeing her in my dreams.
Yeah.
It was terrifying. That was when practical effects just worked. You didn't need CG or anything like that. Movies like The Thing
Yeah.
scarred me. Like the first time I saw them, I was like, what is this? My dad let me watch The Thing when I was like 12. He's
That
like,
one's
let's go.
terrifying.
All right, well, we did watches, we did books, and we've talked a little bit of movies, so I should ask because we're close in age. What's like I don't I have a few favorite movies, right? So I have like my all-time favorite movie that like I just love to watch because it's like the movie I've watched the most and that I can keep rewatching because it like struck me as a kid. It's always been that way. And then I have like the movie that I think is like one of the best movies ever made. For you, what is like your favorite movie ever to just watch? Like doesn't have to be an award winner, just your favorite.
For me, I go to a lot of just like silly comedies.
Yeah,
Like for a long time, Dazed and Confused was my go-to movie.
such a good movie.
Because in high school, anyone who is younger won't get this, but I'm from a small town. We didn't have Blockbuster, but I worked at the mom and pop equivalent of a Blockbuster when I was 16.
Yeah.
So it was like we were allowed to rent anything at the end of the night for free that didn't get checked out as long as we brought it back the next day. So it was like every night it was like me and I'm from an island and me and my friends were kind of like surfer kids. And so it was like every night it would be like, all right, I'll get Dazed and Confused. We'll put that on the TV and like hang
Really
out
good
and
movie.
not always watching it, but it was always on in the background as we like just kind of chilled in the basement.
It's easy to rewatch that one just over and over again. There are so many good characters. There are icons in that movie too,
And then,
before they were big.
oh yeah, absolutely. And then in terms
Ben
of like,
Affleck.
yeah, favorite movie that's not silly would probably be American History X. That was my favorite for a long time. It's definitely heavy, but I think
That
Edward
was
Norton's performance
such a
in that
good.
movie is fabulous. I think the use of like black and white for the prison scenes, like it's a
Mhm.
heavy movie, but I think altogether it's just really well done.
The director killed it.
Yeah.
He killed it. It was such a good movie. I remember that's a movie I will never forget the first time I saw it, for sure.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of those. I think like Full Metal Jacket's like one of those that I was like the first time I saw that movie, I just remember shutting it off and just being like,
Yeah, I remember
what?
a lot of
Like
my friends back then. They're like, "Oh, why do you like that movie? It's about a racist." And it's like, "Yeah, but it's bigger than that. Like that's not it. That is what
a
it's about. But
redemption
it's
story.
about the redemption and also the ultimate
It,
loss of what he brought his family into."
exactly. He like the ending of that movie is so insanely heavy, but it sends such a big message that like I always tell people, I go, it like if you think people buy this or rent this because like they're skinheads or
Right.
something, or they're racists and they're like, yeah, let's watch this movie about racism, that that's just not the case because it makes racists look horrific And
Yeah.
but it also paints a very realistic picture of what, especially West Coast skinhead gangs were, the white supremacist skinhead gangs were back in the day in the 90s and the late 80s and the West, like in LA, they were crazy.
Yep.
I remember seeing all the different there used to be these crazy documentaries that were like early 2000s documentaries about the real crimes that they used to commit. And I was like, these guys were just murderers like everybody else. They were a bad gang in the West Coast, just like any of the others, basically. They just had smaller numbers,
Yeah, and it really showed the
fueled
and
by hate.
yeah, and it how much racism is learned. Everything was originally parroted what his father said,
Yeah.
and then he ends up in a situation actually around these people that he hates, and he figures out for himself that it was all bullshit.
Yeah. And he ends up with that great dude folding laundry.
Yep.
That
Yep.
guy was epic. He was so good.
I
There
don't
was a lot of great characters in that movie.
I don't have a lot of DVDs left. I used to have a ton, but that's one of the ones that I've always held on to. I still have it somewhere. I don't even know where it is, but there's like probably 8 or 10 DVDs that I kept.
Yeah.
And that was one of them. I was like, nope, this one is just. I watched that a lot back in my college days. What like would have been like '04.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I have a few that are like that like I remember I was the guy that introduced Boondock Saints to my friends.
Oh yeah, that's a good
So that
one
was kind
too.
of a flex. And finding out later that David Delarocco is distantly related to me was kind
Oh,
of wild.
that is
Yes,
cool.
yeah. Him and my mother are actually cousins, I guess, which is crazy. Same last name. My mother's maiden name is Delarocca, and Delarocco's were all connected. I asked her one day, I was like, hey, have you ever heard of this movie, The Boondock Saints? And she was like, no, what is it? This was, maybe 2005, 2006 that I was talking to her about it. I was like, it's this shoot up, like decent action movie. It's kind of like a Tarantino-esque type movie. You might not like it, but I was like, there's a guy in it that has like a lot of our cousins and like uncle's last name because in our family, maybe something happened over at Ellis Island, but like I do have cousins that have the last name Delarocco, but my mother's maiden name is Delarocca. It's weird. I don't know.
Right.
But I go, this guy even looks like a lot of us. Like he's got the nose, like he's bearded in the movie. She goes, let me see. So I show her like a picture of him, and she goes, oh, he looks familiar. And I have her like watch a few scenes, and she's watching him, and she's like, Jesus Christ. And she did a bunch of digging, and she talked to like her cousins, and they were like, oh yeah, yeah, he's so and so's kid. He's from I think somewhere out in New York City originally, but they were like, yeah, he got into acting, stopped talking to a bunch of people. We don't know anything about him. And I'm like, okay, cool.
That
Well,
is
I'm
kind of cool
telling
though.
everybody that I'm related to him now.
So
So if he sees this
what
podcast, yeah, David.
yeah, hit you up.
Well, I mean, we kind of do look alike.
What would you say is your favorite movie?
Uh, so my all-time favorite movie to just watch anytime is Predator, the original with Schwarzenegger.
Oh, oh yeah. That's a quintessential 80s right there.
It is. I grew up on 80s movies. Schwarzenegger and Van Damme movies and Stallone movies were some of my favorites.
Now, isn't that the
And
one where he has on the funky Seiko?
the original Predator, he has a Seiko on that is now a very famous Seiko. It's the Seiko Arnie,
Yeah.
and he wears it in Commando as well. But the first time he wore it, I think with wait, did Commando come out after Predator?
I don't
Well, he
remember,
wears
but
it in both of them.
I know anytime I see a picture of the Arnie, it's from Predator.
Yeah, that movie. I know most of the lines for in that entire movie. It's embarrassing, but like I had a girlfriend that didn't believe me, and I was like fired up. And after like 15 minutes, she was like, "All right, I get it." I was like, "Yeah, I told you, I know the whole movie." My parents bought me like the VHS. I like played it too much where it stopped working good, so they bought me like another one. Then I got the DVD, Blu-ray. It's always around. But my all-time favorite movie besides that is The Way of the Gun from the late 90s.
I don't know if I've seen that.
It's made by the same guy that made The Usual Suspects, the
Oh,
same
okay.
director, and it's starring Benicio del Toro and Ryan Phillippe is in it. Taye Diggs is in it.
Oh, yeah, okay. I have
Um,
I would have seen that back when it came out. I don't think I've seen it since though.
I just love that movie so much. The I don't know what it is. The soundtrack in it is like awesome. The editing, it is very Tarantino-like, but not at the same time. You can tell like this director has his own little thing going as well because he does a lot of it in all of his other movies. Like the way that The Usual Suspects is edited and cut up, and the way that the music is done, and the way the characters are sometimes and everything is very much done the same in Way of the Gun. And I just I like shoot 'em up movies. I like movies where it's just all bad guys, where that's what this is. There's not a single good guy in the movie.
Right.
It's just all bad guys. They're all criminals. And Benicio del Toro is my favorite actor of all time.
Yeah,
So
he's fantastic.
yeah,
Now, when
that
you're
guy
watching
just he's
movies, do you
scary
watch Spot?
every time.
Yeah. Since I've got into watches, I was like, even with TV
Pause
shows,
it.
I'm like, yep, I gotta pause it. And
Yeah.
if I don't know, I'm like, all right, Google Lens, work your magic.
The last one that really got me hunting and like debating with people, I made the video about it when it was on my TikTok account before it got banned. And it was uh what was the name of the show? Cole Domingo was the actor in it, and he was wearing a gold chronograph. It ended up being a Speedmaster. We found out, but it was like a special edition Speedmaster. It was made out of solid gold. Um, but I kept pausing that show. It was a series on Netflix, The Madness. That's what it's called, The
Okay.
Madness. Kept pausing. I'm like, this watch is not only awesome looking, but I think that's a Speedmaster. Well, turns out Cole Domingo, the actor, he is a huge watch guy. And I bet you that's his personal watch and he wanted to wear it in there because a lot of actors ask to wear their own watches now.
Yeah.
So a lot of actors are actually like now that we find out like because everybody does watch content on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, they're always pointing out celebrity watches, and then every once in a while you'll see like an interview with them where they talk about it. And Cole Domingo was interviewed. He's very into watches, and he is like a huge Omega guy. He wears mostly Omegas. He's got some Cartiers. I think I've seen with like one Rolex, but a lot of the time, dude is wearing Omega.
Yeah, I like one of my favorite things to do is find affordable watches that are in movies and shows.
It's the best.
Like I have a Casio, I forget the exact reference number, but it's from the movie with Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum where they're arms dealers.
Oh, that was a good movie. I only saw that the one time.
I forget what
No,
it's
what
called.
that wasn't Channing Tatum, but it was Jonah Hill. It was the
No,
other.
no, it wasn't
It's
Channing
another
Tatum. It
tall,
was
handsome guy,
Miles Teller.
Miles Teller. Yeah,
But
not
there's
too
a
popular
Casio.
with people anymore.
If there's a Casio that he has that it looks kind of like a G-Shock from far away, but it's just like a basic $17. I forget the exact reference, but I was like, yeah, I'll probably pick that one up just for fun. And then
Well,
even
the
like,
Mission Impossible one. That's a
yeah,
G-Shock. Oh,
yep,
it's a no. It's not a G-Shock. It's actually a Casio that
it's
looks
a
like a G-Shock.
it's a the DW 290.
Yeah,
And a lot of people
look.
consider it the ugliest watch in the world, and I'm like, I'm gonna get it someday.
Oh, they're cool. And I think they're only like $40,
Yeah,
something like that.
I
Yeah,
think
I
I
like.
think they actually discontinued it last year, but
Okay,
there's like a million of them out there still. Like you can get them all day on eBay for retail still.
okay.
And
Well,
then
I've seen Michael Keaton in two different movies wearing Hamiltons. I don't know if he always wears Hamiltons, but I've seen him wear Hamiltons in two different movies.
yeah, Hamilton. I think Hamilton's pretty cool as a brand in general.
Uh,
I like the fact that they're Swiss made, but they still have the long history of being an American company.
yeah,
Elvis wore um,
Ventura.
the Ventura, and then that also became the Men in Black watch.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And they're pretty cool. I don't feel like I should get one of those because I don't
I've
see anybody wearing them.
I've considered it too. Like I don't know if it's for me, but they are so cool because they're so unique.
No,
And
I
then
want to wear one.
I also respect the fact that Hamilton listened to people get so hyped about the Murph, and they're like, "All right, if you guys want it, we'll make it."
Yeah, we'll make us. Well, and then they were like, it's too big, and they were like, we'll make a smaller one.
Yeah,
They
when I
did.
got mine, I was like, I tried the 38 on, and I was like, I got to get the 42 just because it was the original. I
Yeah,
can
they, well, you can wear the 42.
I can just barely. I can understand if you have smaller than like a 7 inch wrist, especially, it's like it's going to be too big.
Yeah,
But
those lugs.
Hamilton, I really like Hamilton as a brand. I think that they do a lot of really nice stuff for relatively affordable prices. I mean, the Murph is, if you're a non-watch person, $1,000 sounds like a ton. But I mean, for Swiss, that is kind of entry level. But
Yeah, you could get it on gray market dealer for
yeah,
six,
yeah.
seven now, which is
But even
great.
so, they have the hand wind field watch for, I think brand new it's 500. You can
Yeah.
get it secondhand for 250, 300. That's a
Yep.
fantastic watch.
Oh yeah. I I'm always gonna like Hamilton, and actually, I'll be in New York in 2 weeks. Um, and I always stop at like a few watch shops, and there's no Hamilton AD in Rochester where I live, at least that I know of. The place that used to carry Hamilton, last time I was in there, they didn't have Hamilton anymore. And I'm like, who doesn't have Hamilton? But like, we also barely have any ADs in Rochester. So when I'm in New York, I'm gonna try on the Khaki Expedition because that's a watch that I really want to try on a wrist.
Yeah, I like
And
that
if I
one
really
too.
like it, if I really like it, I might buy that watch. I might.
While you're here, I live just outside of New York City.
Do you really?
Yeah, I'm just north of the Bronx. So when you're here, we'll
Oh, no
talk.
shit.
We'll talk, and maybe we should go hit up Chen's in Chinatown or something and go look at vintage watches.
If you want to, that I'd be down the second day that I'm there before I go home because I'm going there for a watch thing. I'm going there
To meet with Formex, right?
Formex.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
very
That's
cool.
my favorite brand now. I'm obsessed with them. I really do the thing is like when I was at Wind Up Watch Fair, I went and I held and I tried on multiple watches from the three bigger ones that I think of, like Fortis, Christopher Ward, and Formax are like three that like have really good reputation and have had a good reputation for a while. Fortis is a little more expensive, but I had to
Yeah.
see. They were nice, but even Formax like wowed me more and they felt more quality to me than Fortis did. And then I tried Christopher Ward. I really liked Christopher Ward, but again, I liked Formax's design language a little bit more. And then the small details with Formax is what won me over completely. Like the on my Essence, it has that like spring-loaded case design where it basically like when you're if you want to wear your bracelet snug with a bracelet and you flex your wrist, like you feel it flex with your wrist.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's crazy. And then it has a tiny micro adjust on the bracelet. I love that. And then I have this one. I just put it on this fabric strap because I love these. But the Formex Field Watch, man,
Yeah, I'm a sucker for field watches.
I cannot recommend this enough. Like titanium case, SW200, right? 150 meters water resistance with a screw down crown. Like I know we both love Hamilton, but my question to Hamilton is like, why can't you give us a screw down crown on a field watch? Like it's a field watch.
Yeah. Yep.
I
On the Murph, I get not having it because it is a little
yeah,
bit it's a little bit dressier, but like
it is for
on the
sure.
hand wound or the um just actually any of their field watch line,
Yeah,
it
it's
really should have more
crazy.
than 100 meters because
Yeah,
water resistance is it's kind of deceptive in the watch world anyways because
yeah,
100 meters doesn't always mean 100 meters because it all has to do with pressure and
yeah,
if you move your hand real fast underwater, it doesn't matter if you're at 10 feet because the pressure is higher. But a screw down crown really should be doable.
yeah. It's that like I the essence I like. It's that's one of my favorite watches that I've ever bought, the Essence. But as far as everyday wear goes, I've never had a watch check more boxes than this one. And this is why that's why I wear this so much. I've also smashed it on things by accident, like because I wear this one to work now. Work in a machine shop. I'm reaching in and out of machines all the time. And I work in the diamond turning department. So like we have I have hit this thing on a diamond, like the thing that we use to cut things,
Right.
and it put just a tiny nick in it, like just a tiny nick. Everything else I've smacked has not scratched this thing. It looks brand new.
So besides Formex, who were you most impressed with at Windup?
Echo Nutra and I mean, I, I've always been impressed with Islander, but by the time I got there, I think I had already bought five Islanders, so I knew what they were about.
Right.
As far as first time seeing them, yeah, Echo Nutra, Formax, Fortis, and Christopher Ward still really, they wowed me as well. But then, there was this one they had, it looked like a Dr. Pepper GMT diver. And they even had it modeled next to Dr. Pepper, and I can't
Oh,
remember
yeah,
the
yeah.
name. Jack Mason? Is that the name?
It might have been.
I think it's Jack Mason. If I got that wrong, I feel bad. But at the same time, their watches were beautiful, and the quality of the build was just there. And when you saw it in person, like everything really popped. Everything, and it felt like a vintage watch that was brought to life with all brand new stuff.
Yeah.
It had that vintage old school feel to it. And it was super cool. And now that I think of it, I'm gonna have to probably do a video on them, make sure I got the name right before I do it. But yeah, because I never did a video on them on my last account, so I should probably do one now.
I
But
was
yeah, Echo
uh,
Neutral probably the most though.
on the affordable end. I was really impressed with how do you pronounce Laurier?
Oh, their watches are great.
They were so nice too, and
Yeah,
their location was kind of they were right on like a corner, so they were
yeah,
packed,
yeah.
and I kind of squeezed my way in. It took a while because I really wanted to look at. I forget the name of the model, but it's basically an Explorer homage.
I think I know the one you're talking about.
And then from
Um,
there, they showed me one that was kind of a different case shape, more similar to what you have on your wrist, actually.
oh, okay,
That
that's
was,
the dress watch one.
yeah,
That watch is really nice. I can't remember which one that what that one's called. The Explorer one I think is really cool,
I
but
liked
there's
that one a
another one
lot.
that they made one with they have a sports watch with arrow hands that kind of reminds me of um the Railmaster that they did, but that
Oh,
Omega did a while
yeah.
back with those arrow hands. That watch is really sharp, and I think it's only like $700, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
Laurier
really
is really
impressed
cool.
with them because I went to look at the Explorer homage and they were like, no, check these out too. Like they made sure I tried on everything and like gave
Yeah.
me time. They were swamped.
Yeah, I think I only got to just like do like a peek over and look.
Their
But
location was
I have
really good
friends
for
that buy their
them.
watches.
Where they were located was really good for them, but it was really bad for like trying to get to talk to them because it was like right as you're kind of they were at the end of the circle to get out of the first floor.
Oh
So
yeah, that's a terrible spot. I remember that now. Okay, because there was one that was like right next to them that I think was like a newer brand
they
that
were
had really
British.
crazy. Yes,
They were
those
very
guys
cool
were.
too.
Yes, did you see the bracelet that they had? Now I feel bad that I can't remember the name of that brand.
I wonder if I have a picture of that because they were super nice too.
Well, Ferrer was there also. They're British, right?
I do this one.
Yes, I can't remember their.
It looks like it's like isotope or something like that.
Yes, Isotope. That is it. It's Isotope.
Yeah, they were great.
Yeah, they're really cool. Fairer, their watches really impressed me. Um, yeah, Fairer. I don't like saying the name though. Farer. It's like, dude, you're making me
And then
Fairer.
one of the brands that I was most excited to see in person because the Instagram algorithm picked me up with this brand. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's Kuoe. THE. It's a Japanese brand.
Kuo, I think is
Yeah,
how it's pronounced. They're really nice. I've been debating getting the one of the, is it the Smith or something?
and
The Royal Smith?
they're all fully customizable. Especially,
Yeah, the
I guess if you go to their shop in Japan, you literally pick from every option, and they make the watch while you're there. You pick the
oh,
dial, you pick the
okay.
strap, you pick. They were super nice too, and I was actually blown away by how nice the guys at Oris were too, because they're kind of a bigger, more established brand.
Those guys were like so laid back.
They were
You
so
didn't,
cool.
you would think they weren't at work.
Yeah, and
But I also heard that the owner of that company pretty much is like just the most laid back guy ever. That's what Alex, the watch regulator, said. He said that the owner of Oris is just like an absolute G. He's super cool.
they have a bronze green dial pointer date.
Yeah,
That's high up on
those
my
are
list
sweet.
too.
Those are sweet. I like the new divers. The what is it just called the Oris 39?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
They
they're
also
super
had
slim.
they
They just wear really nice on the wrist.
they also had a dress watch that was kind of Cartier tank shaped, and
Yes.
the bands matched the dial color. They had a maroon one that was pretty slick looking.
Yeah, the one that got me the most though that was Cartier looking was that Echo Neutral, the titanium one that they dropped.
Yeah,
The Rivera or whatever. I think that's what it's called. I don't remember now. But that watch is sharp. I just didn't like the price tag because I was like, I I don't wear dress watches enough to spend that kind of money on one.
I don't either. My only dress, well, I guess I have two now. I got one for Christmas as well. I got a gold Citizen one, a quartz one, but I have the Orient Bambino small second.
That's one of the best value watches I think money could buy is an Orient Bambino.
Yep, I love
To
the
all
small
of your
second.
listeners, yeah, get an Orient Bambino.
I think the small second one especially looks very like 1930s.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
The when they did the smaller size case with the small seconds, I was like,
I think,
I
yeah, I
think
think
I'm gonna
that's like
get one.
the V3.
Yep,
But
that's
yeah,
gonna be the one I get.
I think at this point I would probably buy Orient in general over Seiko.
A lot of people prefer their design language, actually.
Yeah,
Like
that
my friend buys, ac- he's got like 10 or 12 Orients, and I think he's only got one Seiko, and I bought him the Seiko for his birthday.
I just saw an Orient last night on Reddit. Uh, It was in the Casio Duro subreddit. Someone got rid of their Duro and replaced it with an Orient, and I guess it's Kanno, Kano, I guess is how you would say
Yeah,
it.
they're bigger than the Kamasu,
Yeah,
and
and
they're a little more boxy and a little more modern looking.
yeah, I liked it a lot though. I was like, and
They're nice.
I checked out real quick. I was like, ooh, they have a Pepsi colorway. They have a nice blue colorway for it.
Yeah, if you go on Joma Shop, they're like 150.
Yeah, they're super affordable, and
Yeah.
I mean, everyone says that they're basically a Seiko, but they're owned by the same parent company. They're like
It's the
cousins,
same. Yeah, they're
but
they're awesome.
they have their own movements, and they definitely. I think I prefer their design language overall throughout their whole line. Like I
Yeah,
think,
yeah. My friend actually he like dresses in a way where that design language actually works better for him because he dresses up all the time.
yeah,
Or like with the divers, he just looks kind of like a more old soul kind of guy. So like Orient divers always look like more old school and traditional.
yeah, they all look
They don't look
vintage.
like something super modern like a Seiko does. Yeah, so yeah, it just works for certain people. I could definitely see you wearing I mean I like the Kano, but I could see you in a Kamasu. I do like those a lot.
I do too. I like the Mako a lot too. I
Yeah,
think
the
for
Mako's isn't that the biggest one though?
I think I think the Mako is about the same size as the Kamasu.
Okay.
I think I was drawn to that one initially because it had the 12, 6, and 9 with the date at 3.
Yeah,
And so it's kind of got the layout similar to like an Explorer.
yeah. I wonder I know that they now have a smaller diver that Orient makes. I think it's a 38 millimeter. I did a video on the one of them.
Yeah, I think they do. They have a lot of good stuff for, I mean, like under 200 bucks.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna get one of those 38 millimeters for my girlfriend's son. He likes watches. I've gotten him a few. I want to get him a proper diver, a
Yeah,
mechanical diver, you
divers.
know?
I think divers are a really good first watch for, especially for teens, because
Yeah, he can
they're
wear this
durable.
too. Yeah, he can wear this. So I think I'm gonna do that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna find out from her which color I should go with.
I've tried getting my daughter into watches. She's not going for it yet, but for her birthday 2 years ago, I got her a 1980s Seiko tank.
Nice.
I was like,
Yeah, those
I can't
I
afford the
like those.
Cartier for you, but it looks like it.
How old's your daughter now?
She's 15.
Okay, nice. Yeah, well, 1 year, man.
Yeah. Yeah, this summer she'll be 16. She's like, "Am I allowed to learn how to drive as soon as I turn 16?" I was like, "If you pass the permit test, that's it. We're good to go. You got to study and pass. That part's on you, but
Yeah, man. I actually like I used to roll my eyes at my mother, you know, when she'd like get nervous about me first driving. Be like, come on, mom, fine. But now that I'm an adult and I have friends who have like kids that are they like I have a few friends whose kids just started driving. I see them in cars every once in a while, and I'm like it. I get like jumpy. I like one the first time it ever happened to me. I saw my friend's daughter who she was probably 16, 17 at the time, but like I remember her from when she was like 3. I saw her like in a Honda driving fast, like through a parking lot, like aggressively. And I was like, what the-" and I remember like she saw me because I was outside of my car and she just whizzed by me. And when I saw my buddy and saw her like 2 weeks later, I gave her a look. Like after he walked away, I was like, "Did you see me in that parking lot?" And she was like, that was you? And I go, yeah, what do you do? I was like,
yeah,
I didn't even know you could drive.
suddenly you get where your mom was coming from."
Exactly. But then like I'm sitting there and I'm like, I almost put my hand up to start like doing, and I was like, what are you doing, man? Like, because I don't have kids. Again, I'm already gonna transform into like what, the uncle? Like, no. Yeah. That but it is kind of scary for me sometimes when I see young drivers because they're like 26 years younger than me.
Yeah, and there's a whole lot more distracted driving going on now compared to when we were teenagers.
There's a whole Instagram page just dedicated to catching people who drive on the highway, like and use their phones.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrifying.
And I watch it and it just gives me like crippling anxiety when I watch it. And I'm like, why are you following this account? Like it's crazy. I won't send it to you unless you want to see it. But like there was this one that was wild because the guys that filmed it, they even have their own channel, but they had this woman who they filmed for like a solid 2 minutes who was doing 70 on the highway playing Candy Crush.
Yeah, it's crazy what you see.
It was terrifying, man. She was just really into that Candy Crush game at too, like you could tell. She was on like a high level and going for it and like also doing 70 at the same time. And I was like, what is going on?
I've ridden in the car with people that are too attached to their phone where it's like we get to a red light and they pull up Instagram and I'm like, it's gonna turn green in 20 seconds. Like, do you really
Yeah,
need to
you can
check
let that go.
Instagram?
Yeah,
It's like
whatever you're waiting to see, it'll be
scrolling their
there.
feed at a red light and it's like, no, you don't need to do that.
Yeah, no, I don't. I'm thankful I don't get like that.
Yeah, my phone goes in a holder and I don't touch it. I have Apple Play for my directions and music,
Yeah,
and it's like
I
I don't.
I I keep a backpack with me everywhere I go when I go to like work or something, and there's a pocket for my phone, and I slide it in that pocket before
Yeah,
I even fire up the car, and I'm like, all right, we're good. Like it's out of reach. It's not like if I hear it ringing, okay, like I can reach over and grab it if I need to, but
yeah, it's not worth it.
no. Yeah, I drive an older car now too. I downgraded to a beater for a bit. I'm actually buying a new car in like a month, but because of that, like I don't have that like where I get in the car and it automatically recognizes my phone like my last car did. Like I would climb in the car and it automatically was like Bluetooth was hooking up to my phone.
Right.
And then it was like, yeah, I'm hooked in. It doesn't matter where the hell it is. But I kind of like having it like in my bag. And like even if I hear it ringing, I'm like, it's not even interrupting my radio right now. I'm good.
Yeah.
Like
No,
I
you're
have been listening to the radio too.
you're probably better off for it because we all use our phones a little too much
Yeah,
in
getting the
general.
older car helped. It kept me completely off that phone.
Yeah, I did that for a few years too. I went back to what was it? It was a 2006. I went from a 2016 to a 2006. And
Yeah,
then now 2 years ago, I got into something newer again. But you say, yeah, for a couple of years, it was like no technology. It was like I had the tape deck receiver for for listening to music where you plugged it into the headphone jack, like taking it way
yeah.
back to high school.
I remember, man. Do you remember if you probably did this? I had the Discman hookup.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yep,
and like you had to buy a whole separate thing to hold your Discman on your dashboard, or that thing would just slide around everywhere. But yeah, you had this thing that would plug into your Discman, and then it would have a tape deck thing, like a cassette that you slide into your tape deck. And you're like, we're plugged in now. What CD do you want to hear? But don't go over any big bumps. Like,
yeah,
yeah,
yep. And then had the CDs on the visor
yeah,
where you'd flip it
yeah,
down to find the new CD, and
exactly. And I remember, see, I still have, it's tucked away somewhere, but I still have a big CD, like an unzipped, like big CD booklet that's filled with mixed CDs, and then like my old CDs.
I have one
I
of
think
those somewhere too.
I have like every old Nas album and like all like all the Wu-Tang albums from back in the day. They're all in there. And then like the stuff that like we almost forgot exists. I opened it like a year ago and I was like going through it and I had the very first Nappy Roots album.
Oh wow,
I was like, I forgot about this. And then I loaded it up on my iPhone, on my iTunes, so I could just listen to it, not have to put the CD in. And I went through and I listened to that album and I was like, damn, this is still so good. That whole album is still playable.
I haven't heard that in years.
It's good music. It's just good vibes. That is good vibes. Like Nappy Roots, awesome. We need more music like that just to get you kind of like in a good mood, maybe wanting to move, bop a little bit.
Yeah, just vibe.
Right now, people are releasing a lot of dark music
Yeah,
because it's dark times.
yep, yep.
You know, it's dark times when the Smashing Pumpkins are getting creative.
Yeah, that's valid.
So
It's
yeah.
been a long time. But
Well, I gotta get
Zoom,
ready for dinner, man.
yeah, Zoom is about to cut us off again, so we'll call this our ending spot. But this was fun. We should definitely do this again sometime because
I'd love to, man. Thanks.
there's endless more
Seriously.
watches we can talk about. And I'll message you. And we'll work on maybe linking up while you're in the city.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And if you want to do another one, we can come up with a cool format.
Yeah.
We can come up with stuff to talk about.
All right, man.
All right,
Well,
brother. Thank you again.
thank you so much for coming on. And I'll put your socials in the down below on the YouTube. I'll put your watch account and your book talk account.
Oh, appreciate it, man. Thank you.
All right, man.